All right. Good evening. Welcome to American Advocates. There's a lot to talk about today. It's all going to be centered around one topic. It's a very obvious topic. I think if you are on social media at all or on the internet in any capacity, then you've already probably seen at least some clips of the train wreck that was Pam Bondi today. And, I feel once again so validated and vindicated on this channel. I got a lot of grief early on in this Trump administration last year, back around April and especially in May, when I started calling for Pam Bondi to resign and started criticizing her. All the while, by the way, I've been putting up various polls on my community tabs page here on YouTube, asking and polling people what their opinions were of Pam Bondi, and they've been overwhelmingly positive somehow. And even today, I've been seeing some polls echoing that. I don't know what kind of fucking delusional boomer cucked conservatives are voting on these polls saying that they approve of Pam Bondi's job, but that just should not be the case anymore after today. I'm going to cover everything that I saw. I just watched 2.5 out of the 4 total hours of Pam Bondi in this congressional hearing where she embarrassed not only herself, not only the entire Department of Justice, but the Trump administration, the Epstein victims, and pretty much America in general. This was a disgrace that took place today with Pam Bondi. She got steamrolled. And I've been seeing MAGA loyalist channels insist that Pam Bondi was steamrolling through these people in Congress that were grilling her. Quite the opposite. I took extreme notes here. This stream might run a little longer. I tried to keep the streams at about an hour. This one might run a little longer, but it's worth going over because everything that unfolded today is very telling. And in all honesty, I'm calling for Pam Bondi's resignation again. But on top of that, I'm going to conclude all of this at the end of this stream with what actually needs to happen and why certain things taking place, like her resignation, really might not matter, sadly, at this point, and I'll get into that later. But first and foremost, please be sure to like the stream if you haven't already. It truly helps the stream perform well in the algorithm. If for some reason you're watching this after I've gone live and it's posted as a video, like the video, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this. So this was the worst optics for the Republicans by far. Today really took the cake when it comes to the worst optics I've seen out of a Republican Party, out of this Trump administration by far. Pam Bondi goes before all these congressmen and congresswomen in this hearing. She's there to testify. She's there to talk about various issues. And it wasn't just the Epstein Files that was being discussed, but the Epstein Files conversation and topics stole the show, and it was the one that they leaned on the heaviest right off the bat. And I will say this. I will say when it comes to Democrats, they don't have a leg to stand on. And you do need to understand something, because it's going to sound like I'm supporting the Democrats that were grilling Pam Bondi. I'm supporting what they did today, only on the principle of they were grilling her in a way that I want to grill her. So that's fine. But the fact of the matter is these Democrats only care about this because they want it to implicate Trump and the Trump administration, which I still have predicted and still stand by it won't. Nevertheless, this episode is going to be me applauding the Democrats largely because they did a phenomenal job. Yes, they did. They did a phenomenal job of grilling Pam Bondi, which she deserves to be grilled. Hi from Wilburton, Oklahoma, says Wanda Collins. Hey, hello there. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to American Advocates. Thanks for stopping by. Now, Pam Bondi, the first instance where we see the Epstein Files brought up from what I saw was Pramila Jayapal. And now, in the past, I've called for everything from this woman having her citizenship revoked to being deported out of this country to also pointing to the fact that foreigners should not hold these positions in Congress. I still stand by that. I think people like Pramila Jayapal and people like Ilhan Omar, for instance, should be revoked out of this country, deported, and they should not be holding any position in our government. That's a stance of mine for sure. Those positions are for Americans. Nevertheless, we're gonna give Pramila Jayapal just a little bit of amnesty tonight because she did a phenomenal job of pointing out everything wrong with this Trump DOJ and everything wrong with Pam Bondi. He points to Pramila Jayapal, the disastrous release of the Epstein Files. And I have seen MAGA channels out here that are too loyal to the Republican Party when they shouldn't be. And I've gone on the record, I voted for Trump. I am so socially conservative. I am so fiscally conservative, but I am just not with this anymore. And today really, really reinforces that. And she points out this disastrous release of the Epstein Files. The MAGA channels that I've seen make it seem like she was criticizing the DOJ for releasing the Epstein Files. She wasn't. She was criticizing the way that they were released and in the sloppy manner that they were released. Something that will be backed up over time at this hearing, which I'll go over in my notes. This idea is reinforced by both Republicans and Democrats alike. The release of these Epstein Files was sloppy, unprofessional, and honestly horrible. So she goes over the fact that names of victims were released unredacted. And this actually violates the Epstein Files Transparency Act, where the names of the victims were expected and required to be redacted. So it breaks congressional law. Nevertheless, that's what we got. We did get a bunch of names, victims' names released. And unfortunately, some of these victims, now some of their families are finding out for the first time that they were sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. They didn't want their families to know. That was on their own time to disclose that information if they ever wanted that out. But now some of these names have been made public because of the ridiculously sloppy DOJ that we're now currently all under with this Trump administration. On top of that, Pramila Jayapal then goes on to state that the names of the co-conspirators were redacted. And so we got the victims' names, which we should have never gotten. It's nobody's business what their names are. And then we didn't get the co-conspirator names, which is what everybody wound up wanting. And of course, we are getting them, and we're getting more of them as Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna continue to fight against this corrupt Department of Justice, thankfully. But nevertheless, they still attempted to do that. And there are still instances that I'll talk about later on that Thomas Massie actually wanted pointing out, where there's entire pages that are just redacted, and the page title is Sex Trafficker Co-Conspirators. And yet the whole page is redacted. They don't want you knowing these names. So Pramila Jayapal points all of that out, how it violated congressional law, how it was unprofessional, very sloppy, unorganized, and how the victims were compromised. Truly disgraceful. And at this point, it doesn't matter who you voted for at this point. This should be very obvious to anybody. There is no defending this anymore. And if you're defending this still, I really have to question your integrity, and I really have to question where your ego is. This is ego at this point for anybody that's still trying to defend Pam Bondi, this DOJ, etc. You have to understand something. People joke around and they say politics is like sports, and when you get older, you realize that. You realize it's like sports, and you really want your guy to win. You want your team to win. That's fair enough in a lighthearted context, but at the end of the day, you need to understand politics is not sports, okay? You don't get to just cheer for them regardless of what's happening. You need to understand that sports are just competitive, objective, score-based kind of activities. Politics literally determines the morality of our society. It determines our structure. It determines the health of our country. Politics is much deeper than sports. So it is not upon you, it is not required of you to stay loyal to your party when they're acting a fool like we're seeing with this Trump DOJ. And that's why I'm here as a socially, fiscally conservative Trump voter. I'm here to still tell you that this is disgraceful what we're witnessing with this DOJ. Absolutely disgraceful. So the fact of the matter is, Pramila Jayapal put on a show. And I still, like I said, I'm only granting her the amnesty that I've already spoken about her in this channel in the context of for tonight's purposes. I still want her I still would love to see her deported. I don't want to see foreigners in Congress. But nevertheless, what she wound up doing was she wound up pointing out the people in the crowd at their will. They were okay with this. The names of the actual Epstein victims that were there during this hearing. In fact, they were sitting behind Pam Bondi. She pointed them out, asked them if they were willing to stand up, and then she asked them if they were willing to raise their hands to let her know if they had not been interviewed or asked any questions or met with anybody from the DOJ. Every single Epstein victim that was there raised their hands to signify that this Trump DOJ has not even talked with them yet. That's a fucking disgrace to the utmost magnitude. And it made Pam Bondi look absolutely not only incompetent, but in all honesty, there's a lot more there, I think, at this point. I am not only have I been done with Pam Bondi since last May, where I've been telling everybody that she was going to be a do-nothing bitch and how she was going to literally just be a disgrace and embarrassment. I've been predicting that on this channel since 2 months in. I created this channel last March, and by May, I already knew Pam Bondi was going to be an abysmal failure. The stipulation I originally put on her, in fact, on this channel, I said if there were no deep state arrests by August, I was done with her. And guess what? No deep state arrests. We got James Comey in August walking in on his own accord through a secret side door to plead not guilty. Then he left, and that's the end of that. What a disgrace. And so Pramila Jayapal then, with these Epstein victims in perfect photo-esque form, diagonally standing behind Pam Bondi off in the viewing gallery, all standing there, all just previously acknowledging that this Trump DOJ has not even bothered to talk with any of them. She then asks Pam Bondi if she's willing to turn around to look at these Epstein victims in their face, in their eyes, and apologize to them for the way that they've been treated. Pam Bondi, of course, refuses to do this. In fact, throughout this entire congressional hearing, Pam Bondi never once acknowledges the Epstein victims or looks at them or says anything to them directly. And what I think would have been the easiest and smartest play for Pam Bondi to do here would have been to take Pramila Jayapal up on the offer, stand up, fucking turn around with some dignity, acknowledge the Epstein victims, apologize to them for not listening or entertaining them at all in any capacity, any investigatory capacity. They've been ignored by this DOJ. Apologize, and then promise them something that we've still not gotten from this DOJ whatsoever in any capacity, and it's called justice. But there's a reason why Pam didn't do that, because justice isn't coming. We're not getting justice in this Trump administration. It's not a serious administration. This DOJ is not serious. The only thing this DOJ is serious about is trying to cover up the Epstein files. And to this very day, they're now still, though they had to uncover them, they're still in cover-up mode. They are doing damage control at this point. It is truly disgraceful. I am embarrassed by this Trump DOJ. I'm embarrassed as a conservative. And truthfully, if you're a conservative, you should be too. You shouldn't be embarrassed to be a conservative. You're on the right side of the aisle. But you should be embarrassed of this DOJ and its performance. These are the good guys. This is what we're getting. We are now officially a year in to Pam Bondi being the Attorney General. Where are the deep state arrests? Where are they? Nowhere. So, the conspiracy theory now that's emerging with this whole bombshell, where we've seen this now, these victims that have been released, their names have been released accidentally. Well, there's a conspiracy theory for that now. I'm going to get to that in 1 second. I know I see the chats are going off the wall. Please be sure to like this stream if you haven't already. It really helps the stream perform well in YouTube's algorithm, an algorithm that, of course, hates an America First channel like mine. Also, subscribe to American Advocates if you haven't already for more content like this. Make sure notifications are turned on when you do, so you're always notified when I go live and post. We'll get to that conspiracy theory in 1 second here. Stop lying, liar. I'm literally not lying. I literally listened to almost the full congressional hearing, and I'll go back to listen to the parts that I fast forwarded through, because honestly, the Republicans were giving her softball. But I listened to 2.5 hours of that congressional hearing, and I took fucking notes. I'm talking notes. What did you do, 657 Spy? Did you read a couple headlines today, you bitch? Huh? Stop lying, liar. Fuck you. Well, you don't like that a conservative's on here, not taking my own side? I'm a big believer in taking my own side for the most part. But there are certain topics that you just can't do this for. And this is one of them, all right? It's not my fault, by the way. You can direct all your anger at me all you fucking want. At the end of the day, it's this administration's fault. Sorry, you precious little MAGA cheerleader princess, but I got some news for you. This administration's already in the fucking toilet, and it defies all logic to me. Trump being the populist with good instincts overall when it comes to popularity, it defies all logic, but here we are nonetheless. I've already explained why I think Trump's doing this, but yeah, look at 657 Spy can't. Where's the crybaby button? Yeah. As if, right? God forbid I be outraged about something like child sex trafficking and a massive pedophile ring across the globe that is going unpunished, 657 Spy. What a great look for you to be in this chat trying to attack me for being outraged over that. God. You can always tell, no offense, but you can always tell the boomers, the boomer conservatives that are the toe the party line boomers. That's 657 spy right there. Dude, stop talking about Epstein, all right? I mean, that was like so long ago. Shut the fuck up. Sleepy Watcher says, y'all attack her because she's working for the Trump administration. I feel sorry for her. I think she's doing no, she's not doing what she can. Not at all, actually. She's doing the opposite. She's trying to do the least amount possible. There's so many documents. It's supposed to be the Biden administration job. Yeah, it was. We're not there anymore. You want to hold, by the way, you want to hold the Biden administration accountable? Because that's gonna be a topic I discuss on this stream. Pam Bondi kept deflecting to Merrick Garland, the former AG under Biden. And it was disgraceful as well. You want to know why? Because it's called responsibility. It's called accountability. You can blame and deflect and do all you want. Biden this, Biden that. I agree with you. I've stated this before on my stream multiple times. It's why Democrats don't get a leg to stand on. There is no high ground for them. They didn't give a flying shit about Epstein until Trump was on the campaign warpath and until Trump was president-elect. Then all of a sudden they decided to care, okay? Everybody knows that. Everybody knows the Democrats are virtue signaling on this. They don't actually care. They just want Trump to be found guilty. Everybody knows that, okay? There's only one good Democrat right now. His name is Ro Khanna. He's teaming up with Thomas Massie, who's one of the last few good Republicans out there, to get this shit done. So don't think for one second that I'm here taking the Democrat side. They're scum, and the Democrats are using this not because they care about it. They're using it to try to get Trump implicated criminally. It's not going to work, but that's what they're doing. We all know that. We can get that out of the way now, okay? Where we're at now is this is the Trump administration. This is the Trump Department of Justice. They have the chance to literally make history, to literally do the right in a way that would be historic. Because what we've seen out of what's going on with the Epstein Files here, what we've seen now is this is the world that's been exposed to all of us. We are now getting a first ever inside glimpse into how the deep state actually works, how power actually works across the globe. This was never meant to be released. And it had to be released because when asked about it on the campaign trail, Trump suggested he might be open to it. Well, we held him to that. And good for us for doing so, you know? That's where we're at, though. So enough about Biden. Yeah. And you want to know, you want to hold Biden accountable? You want to hold the Biden administration accountable for not doing this shit? And you want to hold them accountable for being corrupt and crooked? You know how to do that? You get an attorney general that's willing to prosecute the fucking deep state, which is not Pam Bondi. So I've had it up to here with the whole Biden didn't do it, though. I've said that myself, but that's not an excuse for Pam Bondi not doing it. The logic doesn't stand. The excuse is basically, well, if Merrick Garland, a corrupt attorney general under the Biden administration, and the Biden admin themselves, a party that I'd never vote for, didn't do it, why should we do it? Gee, I don't know. Maybe because you voted, in part at least, for that. Maybe because you voted for the conservatives, assuming they would be the morally upright, good side of the aisle that would do this, would want the justice. Maybe that's why. So no, the logic doesn't stand unless you're willing to freely admit that you want the Republicans to stoop down to the Democrats' level. And I don't think anybody here that's a conservative is willing to admit that. So we're done with that. We're done with that. Biden's gone. I voted for Trump. I voted for him so that Kamala wouldn't win. I voted for him because I'm sick of Democrats. And now what we're getting is actually, in a way, almost worse in some cases than what the Democrats did. They didn't talk about it at all. Trump talked about it, and now he's not delivering. It's a cover-up. It's a poorly conceived cover-up that they're failing miserably at, which makes them look worse. Maybe we don't really need to know how evil they are. I'll tell you this, trailer shift. Here's my thought process on that before I get back into my monologue here about the conspiracy theory behind this Trump DOJ and why they release victims' names. Excuse me. I'll tell you this. Maybe we don't really need to know how evil they are. We do. We deserve to know. But you know what the problem is? And you know what I think a lot of young Americans like myself or Gen Zers are sick of? We're sick of being told how evil they are. We're sick of Republicans getting in and exposing it, showing us how evil they are, and then acting as if that's good enough. Wow, look at that. What a great investigatory job we did, guys. We're showing you the corruption. And then it's like, well, great. Where's the deep state arrest? Oh, we're not going to arrest them. We just want you to know how bad things are, so that maybe you won't vote Democrat again. But as far as arresting them, no, we can't do that. So I'm sick of that. Show us how evil they are, and then show us what you do to that kind of evil. I want to see fucking retribution. And we're not going to get that. And that's what's the most infuriating. It's basically them confirming, they're like, yeah, it's really bad, but we're not going to do shit about it. Fuck that. So, the conspiracy theory that's emerged that I'm seeing, this is just a theory. But the theory is, at this point, and I almost don't want to believe it because I'm a conservative, but the fact of the matter is they released all of these victims' names, and they did so on multiple different accords and different documents that were released to us. So there's two theories, one conspiracy theory and one more logical one rooted in probably a little bit more of reality. And I'm not going to say which side I'm on because I can't determine that right now. The conspiracy theory, of course, is they did this on purpose and that they released these victims' names to actively deter any future victims from speaking out. Now, you have to go real deep down the rabbit hole to understand why that would be the case. I've already gone down deep in that rabbit hole of what is becoming a quickly more confirmed to be factual conspiracy theory that Epstein very likely was an intelligence agent for Mossad, CIA, MI6, etc. I'm not going to go over that at length anymore. I've done that twice now on this channel, but that would play a part there for sure, where it's like this is manipulative at this point. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't believe in that conspiracy theory because the truth is, I believe there's a chance that that could be true, sadly. On top of that, you have coinciding with that the fact that they did willfully redact the names of co-conspirators and perpetrators, which is gross, disgusting. What I will say in their defense, to play the devil's advocate here, I guess, would be they were rushed into this DOJ. I don't think in truth that they ever expected to be in a position where they had to release these files. I think at first they probably wanted, I think this administration in truth is very naive. I think Trump didn't understand fully what he was getting into when he said that he would think about it on his campaign trail. And I clearly don't think somebody like Dan Bongino, who wound up quitting, or Kash Patel, who's done fuck all, or Pam Bondi, who's clearly a blonde, dumb idiot, knew what they were getting into, to be straight up honest with you. That's my honest thoughts on that. And then I think once they understood, we can't release this. And I think they thought they were going to cover this up on us. I think they thought, oh, the phase one binder release will do it. Well, thanks to the internet, we knew how bullshit all that was, so they got called out on that pretty quickly. But then it was, well, the files disappeared. They're not on my desk anymore, and they never existed. And then it was, there was no client list. And then it was, well, he's just a creep trafficking to himself. And then it was a midnight letter statement from Pam Bondi back in last July where she officially closed this case down, implying there would be no future investigations. So I do genuinely think they thought that they were going to have to eat the bullet if needed, but that they were hoping on this blowing over at some point down the line, and they were never going to release this stuff. And then when the Epstein Files Transparency Act almost unanimously passed through Congress, with only one person voting against it, the passing of it, I think they were caught off guard, and they were only given 30 days to release all of it, which was very quick. So I think there's a lot of sloppiness there as a result of that. They should have been fucking doing their job all along, and that's how you would have avoided this. But I don't think they were looking at those files at all when the Epstein File Transparency Act passed, and I think they were caught off guard by it. So that's the logical take. The conspiratorial take, of course, is that they purposefully released these victims' names to punish the victims for speaking out and standing up for themselves, and to discourage future victims from speaking out. And like I said, I'm not going to say that that's a loaded bullshit conspiracy theory. Sadly, there could be truth to that, and time will tell, hopefully. But that's that. That was Pramila Jayapal. And when she was, hang on, let me see where I'm at here. That's right. After Pramila Jayapal, I want to point this out. This was like a congressional war. And there was, first, I'm speaking as somebody who watched 2.5 hours of this shit. I don't know what you guys in the chat wound up watching of it, but I literally just watched the raw footage. And what I noticed was a recurring pattern. The Republicans, they were clearly there to play softball, to give Pam Bondi a reprieve in between Democrats that were viciously interrogating her on the Epstein files. So I wrote this down. Republicans clearly were tasked with not asking Pam Bondi any Epstein file questions. One of the first questions she got after one of the Democrats were grilling her, Pramila Jayapal, on the Epstein files, she was asked about Arctic frost. And of course, that's a topic that is fascinating to me as well. I want to know what's going to happen with Arctic frost and a bunch of the other ones too. A lot of this stuff is being brought to the light now. And then, of course, you have the dilemma, like I said earlier. Will there be justice, though? No. So how much do I really want to know? I don't know anymore. But so that was the question that was asked originally. There's an Arctic Frost question, and it was meant to prop up Pam Bondi. Oh yes, we're investigating the former Obama administration, and we have found this and this about this person, and blah 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 blah. And it's there to make Pam Bondi look good. It's there to try to remind the viewer, anybody who may be watching, that well, there's a lot more going on than just the Epstein Files. But the fact of the matter is, when you try to actively cover up something like the Epstein Files, it becomes a societal obsession. And that's why it was the trending topic of the day there. And that's why it was talked about more than any other topic, despite the Republicans' best efforts to prop up Pam Bondi and allow her to deflect and allow her a reprieve. So I noticed that pattern, and I'm going to cover a few more incidents of that where there's pathetic softball questions lined up to Pam Bondi. It just becomes so evident. Thankfully, 2 Republicans broke rank from this. Chip Roy, who I didn't get to listen to yet, he kind of softly broke rank from Republicans and did ask her about Epstein. But then Thomas Massie, who I'll get to at the end, he grilled the fuck out of Pam Bondi. He grilled the absolute living shit out of her, and rightfully so. I'll cover that later on too. So, the next up one that I watched after Pramila Jayapal, after the Republicans trying to deflect with Arctic Frost questions, was Jeremy Nadler. I think it's Jeremy Nadler. He wrecked Pam Bondi as well. This Jeremy Nadler, there's clips of this. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you look it up. He wound up leading off strong, and he states that Pam Bondi has failed to prosecute any Epstein perpetrators. He then goes on to say that he goes on to cite Pam Bondi targeting Letitia James, which I'm in favor of. I've taken a look at the documents for Letitia James and her quote-unquote mortgage fraud. I have to say it's alleged mortgage fraud, but I'm telling you, as a matter of personal opinion, as someone who's read those documents, Letitia James seems pretty guilty to me. I've looked at them. I've studied them. I wanted something to come of this, of course, and when this administration was early on, it seemed like we were going to get that right off the bat. But in true typical Pam Bondi DOJ fashion, we've gotten nothing. And Nadler made fun of Pam Bondi for this, rubbing it in and citing the fact that a grand jury will indict almost anything. There's the saying out there, you can indict a ham sandwich using a grand jury. And Nadler points that out, and he says, in 2016... he reminds Pam Bondi that in 2016, a grand jury only declined to indict 6 cases out of 150,000 total cases. So it's almost unheard of for a grand jury to not indict someone. Yet here he points out and rubs it in Pam Bondi's face that when it comes to Letitia James, she had a grand jury refuse to indict Letitia James twice inside of 1 week. He then says that must have been very embarrassing for you. And you know what? Fuck Pam Bondi for making me root for Nadler, a Democrat, making me side with a Democrat and be happy to watch a supposed conservative be absolutely grilled like this. I should have been furious at that line of questioning, but I despise Pam Bondi so much that I was rooting alongside the Democrats who were grilling the shit out of her, and I was loving every fucking second of it. So he goes on to attack her with that, which I enjoyed it, honestly, because it is embarrassing. Pam Bondi is an embarrassment to this DOJ. She has failed to achieve anything meaningful. She goes on to cite all of these bullshit. We've arrested 4,000 low-level street drug dealers. Whoop-de-doo. That's a state law enforcement, local law enforcement thing. I don't need to hear my Attorney General of the United States telling me about that. Brag about something real. Oh, wait, she can't. The funnier thing is that while Nadler's rubbing it in that a grand jury failed to indict Letitia James twice inside of 1 week, despite the fact that only 6 cases were not indicted by a grand jury out of 150,000 in 2016. The funny, ironic thing is Pam Bondi was in the process of failing to indict more Democrats today while this was being said. I don't know if you guys remember or even know about these seditious 6 Democrats, Senator Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin. They were the 2 of the leaders of that group. They went on X and they borderline encouraged the United States military soldiers to what they claim. They said, well, disobey unlawful orders. Really, it was borderline seditious. And in my opinion, they're traitors to their country, so fuck them, and I would love to see them indicted. However, a grand jury declined today, while Nadler was making fun of Pam Bondi for failing to indict Letitia James, a grand jury declined to indict Senator Mark Kelly and Alyssa Slotkin over the charges that she wanted them brought up for. So she's failing all over the place. All over. She's a massive failure. Today was a massive L for Republicans, for MAGA, and especially for justice itself. Got more notes here. Nadler then, of course, goes on. This is the sad thing about this when you're a conservative. Nadler goes on to say that this shows the fact that Letitia James was, that a grand jury declined to indict Letitia James twice inside of 1 week. Nadler goes on to say this shows that Trump is using and weaponizing the law in lawfare form and unfairly targeting his opponents, unfairly targeting people who came after him. And the sad reality is, even though this is not true, I've looked at those documents. Like I said, I personally, in my opinion, believe Letitia James is probably guilty of the alleged mortgage fraud that they're claiming she is. The sad reality is perception is reality. And when you fail at that magnitude, because Pam Bondi is so incompetent, when you fail at that magnitude, that is how it looks. And there's no way around that. And that's what's sad about it. There's no way to really argue that now to the independent voters or the everyday person who's viewing this. Only a hardcore conservative would tell you, oh, that's bullshit. So that's what I found even more sad about that. Nevertheless, Nadler goes on to wrap it up. He comes full circle by saying, you know, you've targeted Letitia James. You failed twice. You've spent all this time on Trump's political opponents. But when it comes to the Epstein Files and when it comes to the perpetrators and co-conspirators in there, how many of them are you investigating? How many of them have you indicted? Pam Bondi flips out over this. She literally goes absolutely batshit crazy, like an ex-girlfriend being held accountable for cheating or some shit. That's what it reminded me of. That's what this whole display today reminded me of. She flips out. She immediately tries to deflect. And she says, where were you asking Merrick Garland about this? A name that you'll hear from Pam Bondi if you watch that over and over again. Where were you asking Merrick Garland about this during the Biden administration? How come you're grilling me about it? Gee, I don't know, Pam. Maybe because you're currently the Attorney General, the head of the Department of Justice? Could that have something to do with it, perhaps, Pam? Nadler goes on to point out that Pam has been the Attorney General for a whole year. She fired the lead prosecutor in the case, and she sat on evidence this entire time. He then goes on to say that she falsely claimed there are no more leads and that it took an entire act of Congress in near miraculous fashion where they almost unanimously united to pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act in order to get the files released to begin with. All of which, by the way, he's correct on. And like I said, fuck Pam Bondi for making me sit here as a socially, fiscally conservative voter and side with a Democrat and side with all the Democrats pretty much today. Fuck Pam Bondi. Pam then responds by asking Jeremy Nadler to apologize to Trump for false impeachments and indictments. She doesn't address any of his statements or questions. She immediately deflects. And the common theme you saw with Pam Bondi today, if you watch the hearings, she definitely prepped for this. She had notes that she kept referring to. And she prepped for this. And what she did, what you'll notice she did for anybody that was going against the grain on her, interrogating her over Epstein, she had information dug up about them personally or something that was happening in the districts that they represent. She was pointing out various different sexual criminal cases in their county saying, well, the DOJ arrested a pedophile in your district already, so we're doing a good job. That was her argument to a lot of these things. Or she was deflecting to Merrick Garland, the Biden administration, how the Democrats didn't care about Epstein back then, which is all true. It just doesn't fucking matter right now. And that was the theme that you saw. And in this case, she pointed out how how Nadler was an active part in the indictments against Trump that she represented and she saw firsthand. And she demands that he apologizes to Trump. She goes on to glaze President Donald Trump, another recurring theme you see tonight out of Pam Bondi. They're not even actually, to their credit, these Democrats almost never mention Trump's name today when they're talking about the Epstein Files. To their credit, she's the one that keeps bringing Trump into it, demanding apologies, referencing how he's the greatest president, etc., etc. In fact, this is actually what leads to the most embarrassing moment perhaps I've ever seen from an attorney general. while she's addressing the Nadler criticism, the criticism from Nadler, while she's deflecting about Merrick Garland never being asked about the Epstein files, while she's insisting that Democrats owe Trump an apology, she then looks down at her notes, which it's clear as day she prepped the night before, 2 days before, did research, opposition research to be able to allow her to deflect from answering questions and instead pull up dirt on each individual that's interrogating her. She looks down to her notes and she says, the Dow Jones hit 50,000. The S&P 500, 7,000. The NASDAQ's killing it. The economy is doing so well. We should be talking about the economy. This, by far, I was speechless when I saw this. I literally had to sit down and process I rewatched it. I thought I was looking at an AI parody. This is the fucking Attorney General of the United States, the head of the Department of Justice, not the Secretary of Commerce, not Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, not anybody who has anything to do with the economy. Her job is law and order. Her job is the economy. And here she is, her job is law and order and justice. Sorry, her job is justice. And here she is using the economy, something she has nothing to do with, to deflect against criticisms levied against her about not achieving law and order. No deep state arrests, no prosecutions or investigations into any of the Epstein co-conspirators or perpetrators. She says the economy's doing good. We should be focusing on that instead. That's what she said. This is by far the most embarrassing moment I've seen, and I'm young yet, so give it time. I'm sure other politicians in the future on both sides of the aisle, unfortunately, will make a fool of themselves like this. Give it time in my life. I'm willing to. But as of right now, this is probably the most embarrassing moment I've ever seen come out of anything when it comes to politics, especially an attorney general. Disgraceful. And it's so bad that the entire chamber erupts in laughter. And you can see immediately on her face, she knows she just embarrassed herself. And she deflects again by saying, I don't know why you're laughing. And then she points to certain congressmen, calls out their names because it's clear that they're probably insider trading. She says, I hear you're a great investor. And then she goes on to say, this stuff matters. Why does somebody literally says out loud, how does the Dow Jones matter in regards to this? She's offended at that. She says, how does it matter? But then she never goes on to actually be able to answer how or why it matters. All she goes on to say is, this is the economy. This is the job that Trump's doing. They said it was impossible for Trump to get this done even in 4 years to get the Dow up at 50,000. He did it in 1 year. She glazes Trump. She glazes the economy. She does nothing but deflect. An absolute disgrace. So embarrassing. That's a moment that will define her career as the Attorney General. I guarantee it. She'll never be able to live that down, and rightfully so. Because I'll never forget this as long as I live. Never. Sadly, after that, you know what? First, let me take a look at some more chats here. All right. You need to take accountability if you help put these people in charge. No, I don't actually. I put them in charge to do the job that they said they were going to do. I am not accountable for any of that. No more than you are, in all honesty, for voting for Biden, probably, who very likely, like I said, not to deflect like Pam Bondi here, but I'm not any more accountable than you are. We, the people, vote for people who are supposed to represent us. We're not accountable if they get into these positions and then do the opposite of what they said they were going to do. How are we supposed to know that? The real problem is that the fact of the matter is almost nobody in our current political landscape represents the people anymore. But yeah, don't even. Like I said, that's just moral fagging from a Democrat right there. Well, you voted for this con man Trump administration, so you're accountable. Fuck you. No, I'm not. I'm not any more accountable than you are for anything Biden did. You may have voted for him like an ignoramus idiot fool, but I'm not going to say, well, that embarrassing pull out of the Middle East by Biden where we lost tons of military equipment and soldiers' lives, you're accountable for that, Joda Poe. See how stupid that is? Please, don't be a fucking idiot. She said the Dow hit $50. Well, she was misspeaking. She did say 50,000. It doesn't matter. The Dow Jones should have never entered the conversation. She's not there to talk about the economy. In fact, I never want to hear her talk about the economy because it's not her job. It has nothing to do with her job. Queen of loopholes. She's a puppet for the orange turd. No, you're Lidnell 8838. You are missing the point if you think that she's doing this for Trump. There's something much bigger at play here than Trump when it comes to this. Why they tried to cover this up. Smart man. At that point in time, I was looking for Judge Mathis to ask her if she does crack. Yeah, Judge Mathis was great back in the day. I'm not 49. Impeach all of them. Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm going to say this, Lidnell. I'll say this. There's a golden opportunity here, I think, and I don't think Republicans fully understand this yet, and I think they're going to lose because of it. Whatever politician figures this out first, and comes to the conclusion that if you run on achieving justice when it comes to these Epstein files, if you run on prosecuting scumbags like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel for not only their incompetence, but truthfully for being complicit in this, you're going to win. Because the American people, especially the under 40 voters, are sick and tired of this two-tier justice system and this blatant corruption we're witnessing. The world has been shattered, okay, at this point for everybody. We now understand that bipartisan politicians here, regardless of affiliation, have actively covered this up. The Biden regime, they didn't want to talk about it at all. They seldom ever did. We got nothing under them. And the only reason we got it under Trump is because Congress forced it in almost unanimous fashion. And so this political system is so wicked and corrupt at this point that anybody that's willing to rise up from the ashes and say, we're going to get justice now, is going to win elections. That's how that's going to play out. People are really underestimating that. Let me scroll all the way up to the newest chats. Trump said the Epstein files weren't a big deal. Yeah, exactly. He's a moron. Well, and Trump, I don't even think Trump believes that. I think Trump is covering for the powerful elites. And that's why I think you're an idiot if you think Pam Bondi's covering for Trump. She's not. She's not covering. Trump doesn't actually need to be covered for. I've predicted that on this channel too. If you're sitting here honestly thinking Trump's going to be criminally implicated in the Epstein files, you're going to have it pretty rough soon, because Trump is not going to be criminally implicated in the Epstein files, not because of a cover-up, but because he didn't do what you wanted him to be doing. You're not going to feel that satisfaction ever. That's my prediction. What they're covering for is for wealthy, powerful global elites. And most people can't see the forest through the trees on that one, and I'm not here to even argue with people on that at length. I've already deep dived into who Epstein was, what his connections were, what his affiliations were, what the island actually was for. It was an operation. And if you can't see that, you don't want to accept that, it's not my problem. Kash Patel is even more guilty. He literally stood up and lied. Yeah, I actually think Pam Bondi will be the one that takes the fall. I think Kash Patel, they're going to be able to, they're not going to be able to go after him. He's going to have too much immunity, Kash. But Pam Bondi has lied. Her statements, not good. Both are corrupt as hell. You're an idiot, mate. A blind one, but still an idiot. Okay, thank you. In what world do you live? Yeah, I see a lot of angry people, probably MAGA people. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter anymore. The Democrats had the files for years. Yeah, they did. And what's your point? Arrest all from Bush to Trump. Well, yeah, this is a multi-administration spanning thing. The Obama administration had the files too. So Kash and Bondi are doing the minimal to keep their jobs. They should be fired ASAP. I've been calling for Pam Bondi to be fired for months. It'll be a year, I guarantee it, and Pam Bondi will still probably be the Attorney General. And this is the problem. This is something I understood back when I worked a 9-to-5 job. I was in upper management. You quickly understand something when it comes to, managing people, hiring and firing. You should hire fast, but fire faster. And I knew by last May that Pam Bondi needed to be fired. Trump doesn't want to do it. And Trump doesn't want to do it because he's kind of a cuck when it comes to this more female administration than ever before. It's not playing out very well, is it? Pam should have fired a long time ago. And this is what happens when you don't do that. This is what happens when you want to hold on because Pam Bondi represented Trump in Florida, so he felt an attachment to her. He liked the job that she did. She may have done an okay job down there. She sucks ass as the U.S. Attorney General. She should have been fired months and months ago. She should have been fired by August. Stop everything. We've got a super chat from 2009 Lifeguard. Welcome to the stream again, man. Thanks again. This is your second super chat, and I see I've earned $1 more from you this time, so I appreciate that. He says, can't see the forest through the trees. Yes, they can't. They just can't. They're obsessed with the acts that were taking place on Epstein Island, and I don't blame them. They're morally depraved acts. They're disgusting. But the Epstein Island, this whole Epstein thing was so much bigger than what most people are willing to accept. And that's just facts. Now, going to move on here. Continuing on with this Pam Bondi hearing, she gets, after she embarrasses herself in this congressional hearing, citing the Dow Jones and saying that we should all be focused on the stock market. Don't you ever call U.S. attorney generals to these hearings to testify about how good the economy's doing? Obviously, no, you stupid blonde bimbo bitch. But after she embarrasses herself like that, another Republican comes up and he glazes Pam Bondi. He gives her that reprieve, which is what I'm telling you I've noticed as the pattern during this, while she's testifying here. It's like you get these Democrats that are grilling her, sprinkled in with a Republican here or there who goes, oh, Pam, I just wanted to let you know you're doing a great job, and I'm going to ask you some softball questions now to give you a break from being interrogated so ruthlessly from these Democrats who, for some reason, care about the Epstein Files now. So this, I didn't even bother to get his name because I was so disgusted with the line of questioning, but this Republican comes on next, and he glazes her. Then a Democrat comes on to complain about ICE, and after the Republican glazes her, the Democrat says, oh, there's ICE here, and you're encouraging people to become ICE officers instead of police officers. And, he says, Alex Preddy and Renee Good, they were executed the same way Kristi Noem executed her dog, and that's wrong. And it's like, oh, give me a fucking break. I mean, we want all of them deported. And on top of that, most people didn't grow up in the country life. But I'll tell you this, my grandpa shot a dog too for the same. If a dog bites you, you fucking shoot it. People are so soft with that shit, okay? But if a dog bites you and you've been feeding it for years and it viciously turns on you and attacks you and bites you, that's country law. People don't understand that. But the whole Kristi Noem shooting the dog thing, by far hilarious when I saw South Park make. That was the funniest. South Park ripped on Kristi Noem. It was fucking funny. But at the end of the day, people just don't get that. They're like, oh, I would never shoot my dogs. Like, well, that's because you're a bitch and your dog doesn't respect you, which is why your dog barks at every fucking thing that walks by on the sidewalk, has no control, tries to jump out the window at the mailman, doesn't respect you, it attacks people when you bring them into your home, and it bites you after you feed it. No, that's not how it used to be in the country, and that's what Kristi Noem did. So, little side tangent rant there, but fuck. I mean, people are so soft about that shit. That's just country law. You shoot the dog. You kill it. It's a bad dog. Regardless, that's a little bit of the moral, but outside of the scope of the Epstein stuff, it's, oh, ICE is doing this, and Alex Preddy and Renee Good are tragedies. No, they're not. Back to the main point, another Republican, Jim Jordan, who is a Republican, he's the lead here. He asks about John Brennan and if John Brennan will be indicted for lying about the dossier. And of course, you have to be well read on that to understand this. But yeah, John Brennan should be indicted. John Brennan should already be in prison. He's one of the deep staters. And Pam Bondi, of course, she can't answer the question. She says, oh, well, I'm not allowed to talk about that. It's an ongoing case. Fucking yada yada. As I'm ever going to see John Brennan in handcuffs or a prison cell. I just doubt everything about this Trump DOJ at this point. But just goes to show that even Jim Jordan there himself, a Republican, doesn't ask anything about Epstein. The Republicans were unified in the most sickening way, it seems, when it comes to allowing Pam Bondi to talk about anything other than Epstein. Clearly, this was a controlled agenda of theirs that they planned out beforehand. Gross. Another Republican asks, oh, this is funny too. After Jim Jordan, you get another Republican that comes up there. Softball questions her. I kid you not. This is the question he asks. He goes, Pam, do you agree that deporting violent illegal aliens will protect Americans? And she goes, oh, well, of course I agree with that. I mean, that, a lot of these illegal aliens that we've deported with their violent history, we're getting rid of the worst first. It's like, what kind of fucking questioning is this? This is all performative bullshit. And I've got news for Republicans right now who are more unpopular with the youth than ever, it seems. Trump was so popular with the youth, he even held that popularity in his first month as the president. Super rare. But the problem is, it's all performative bullshit. Young people don't go for that anymore. That's boomer slop, okay? Do you agree deporting violent illegal aliens will protect America? Boomers that are in their 70s, that toe the party line no matter what, they open up their can of boomer slop and they go, oh, look at this stunning blonde woman who's the attorney general. I would hit that. Look at her titties. Oh my God, she's so sexy. She's doing such a great job. This poor woman being criticized by the Democrats. Nom 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 nom. Oh, she said she wants to deport violent illegal aliens. Oh, the rest of us are looking at that and we go, what the fuck is that? What kind of question is that? That's like asking the dumbest fucking question. Do you agree that if you add ice into your drink, it makes the drink colder, Pam? Oh, yes, I think that does actually happen, doesn't it? What the fuck? Like, I couldn't believe that was a question. And that was pretty much the only question this Republican asked her. Again, nothing about Epstein. It took the Democrats to actually pull any of that out of her. So, after that, thank God, we get a savage up there. His name's Mr. Lee. He grills Pam on Prince Andrew. And I discussed what was happening when the Prince Andrew photos were being released and how it made him look way more incriminating. For years, we heard the narrative that Prince Andrew, there was a supposedly fake photo of him posing with Virginia Drew Free. And that's pretty much it. There were a lot of suspicious circumstances there. He was disgraced. He was kicked out of the royal family pretty much, to my knowledge. And so these new photos emerge. It's very compromising for Prince Andrew. He's there. He's hovering over this victim. And the victim's redacted. By the way, please be sure to like the stream if you're enjoying the content. It helps the stream perform well in the algorithm. And subscribe to American Advocates if you haven't already. So Mr. Lee traps Pam Bondi brilliantly. I give him a lot of props for this one. This congressman, Mr. Lee, he says, he asked Pam Bondi, he says, so, under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, it's congressional law for the DOJ to redact the photos of any victims, right? Pam Bondi says, yes, that's correct. She confirms it. He then cleverly says, he uses it as his trap, and he says, okay, great. So now we have confirmed then that the redacted image of the girl laying on the floor under Prince Andrew as he hovers over her is a victim of sex trafficking. He goes on to say, anyone who patronized Epstein under the Epstein Files Transparency Act in accordance with congressional law is guilty. Yet last July, he references this, he says, last July, you closed the case. Pam Bondi immediately goes on to say, he quotes Pam Bondi, sorry. He says, you closed the case, and he uses her words. He says, in the words of Pam Bondi, he says, you said, we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against any third parties. Pam Bondi immediately deflects on this, sensing now that she's been trapped, how terrible it looks. There's almost no way out of it, so she resorts to the same deflection that she's at this point been using multiple times. She deflects and says, well, you didn't ask Merrick Garland about this, did you? Where were you asking Merrick Garland, the Attorney General for Biden, about the Epstein files? Mr. Lee shuts her down immediately. He makes her stop talking, and he says, no, I agree with you. He then goes on to say, Mr. Lee says, I was one of the only ones actually asking about the Epstein files during the Biden regime, and I asked Merrick Garland about this. I agree with you. Merrick Garland, he dropped the ball. He then says that Pam is in charge now, and that she's now protecting the perpetrators and co-conspirators. To this, Pam Bondi has virtually nothing left to say. She gets silent, her demeanor changes. Mr. Lee then goes on to say, he then goes on to ask about Trump and the Epstein parties that Trump was at, and he asks outright if there were any underage girls at attendance in any of them. Pam Bondi is dumbfounded, not knowing how to answer this, choosing once again to deflect and to say, this is all so ridiculous. She never answers the question, though. And this was by far probably one of the most damning ones that I saw. Cleverly played by Mr. Lee. Excuse me. Cleverly played by Mr. Lee. Pam Bondi has no response, and he For once, I was so delighted to see he deflated her stupid Merrick Garland deflection. And this is the problem, by the way, with women. And I've said this before, the attorney general position, most positions in our government should not be held by women. You cannot hold women accountable. Anybody who's dated a woman knows this. And what you saw out of Pam Bondi today was the classic, stupid, fucking female deflections when it comes to taking responsibility. That's what this was. It's always, well, you're trying to hold me accountable. Why didn't you hold Merrick Garland accountable? It doesn't matter, bitch. You're in the charge now of the DOJ. You're in the position to where you should have released these files on your own accord. You shouldn't have redacted all of these names, even though you oversaw the entire department that did. And you oversaw the department as they made the mistake, hopefully it's just a mistake, of releasing unredacted victims' names. On top of that, we went through all of the bullshit with her. Oh, the files are on my desk. Never mind. No, they aren't. Never mind. Case is closed. And then it's like, well, why didn't you ask Merrick Garland? It's all a deflection. This is not a position for a woman to have. We need a man in this position. We need a strong man in this position who's going to be hell-bent on achieving justice for America. And most importantly, by the way, something everyone here seems to be overlooking, justice for the fucking Epstein victims, some of whom were in attendance during this Pam Bondi hearing for all of this. What a disgrace. Any strong man selected by this administration is still going to do the same crap. I'm telling you right now, we need a different caliber of person in these positions of power. Because here's my theory on Pam Bondi. She's defending the elites, as is the same with Trump. It's all because of the ties that we've now seen with Jeffrey Epstein to intelligence agencies, namely Israel and Mossad, but definitely, I think at this point, I think we can confirm very likely CIA at least, and possibly MI6. And all of these elites with their power and their positions of power and their wealth, they've been trying to defend them from the start. And I think Pam Bondi is afraid to arrest deep state members and afraid of this Epstein stuff. She's afraid of the backlash and the retaliation that comes afterwards. That's why, and a woman's always going to do that. That's why the Assistant Attorney General, Todd Blanche, who I'm going to talk about in a second here, he's been kind of leading the charge on a lot of this stuff. He's taken the back seat. He's like out of the spotlight because Pam Bondi is so stupid. She literally hogs all the spotlight and attention all the time. But she's content, it seems, to let Todd Blanche make a lot of decisions because I think she wants him to be the fall guy should this administration come to an end, should a Democrat get power again, a Democrat administration rise up and come after her. She's afraid of the blowback and the future retribution, which she witnessed when she was the Florida State Attorney General and represented Trump. That's why you need a man. You need a man who's going to make the sacrifice play. Men have that kind of courage. Women typically don't. Women self-preserve more often than not. They consider themselves more valuable. They give birth, etc. I'm not going to go into the psychology of all this. But that's the facts, and that's what I've noticed, and it's pretty undeniable. And all she did during this hearing was deflect, to the point of where she did research on everybody she knew would ask her about Epstein so that she could point out their dirt and try to deflect. She never directly answered questions. It was a disgrace. So, that leads me into Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie, unlike any of the other Republicans, Chip Roy being the exception, Chip Roy was the only other Republican that broke rank with the clear Republican agenda tonight to ask Pam Bondi anything except Epstein-related stuff. Chip Roy asked her something. It was more of a softball question. I didn't even bother writing it down. Thomas Massie is the one that really broke ranks with the Republicans today. He broke ranks and he immediately started criticizing Pam Bondi for releasing an entire email. This is something I didn't even know about. She released, well, the DOJ, I should say the DOJ, but this is Pam Bondi's, she's the one that takes responsibility for that. She's the Attorney General. She oversees the DOJ in its entirety. And so Thomas Massie criticizes Pam Bondi for overseeing this DOJ that released an entire email full of victims' names unredacted. And it gets even worse than that because the fact of the matter is this email was sent from the victim's lawyer with the headline, "Victims' Names to be Redacted." And it's not as if they glanced over this email and just lumped it in with a bunch of stuff and released it. The name of the attorney had been redacted. So somebody in the Trump Department of Justice saw that email, redacted something, but didn't redact any of the victims' names, threw it in the Epstein files, and let it go public. And now those are all names that are out there, all of whom, under the advisement of the attorney, didn't want their names out there. It's all now out there. So he leads off with that. Then he comes at Pam Bondi about the next document that was released where, what was the title of it? Child Sex Trafficking Co-Conspirators. The title of that document, Child Sex Trafficking Co-Conspirators. And one of the names on there, the co-conspirators' names were redacted. The one that we got unredacted, Les Wexner. And I'm not going to go into him again. I've already made the full deep dive video into Epstein, Les Wexner, Leon Black, Ehud Barak, a bunch of other names that you really need to know to understand who Jeffrey Epstein was, what his island actually was in operation. Nevertheless, that name was redacted. They tried to redact Les Wexner's name. It's a name that you've been paying attention to the Epstein files for years now. You already knew. You already knew about Les Wexner. You already knew that Epstein was the head of the Wexner Foundation and that Wexner gave over basically his empire to Jeffrey Epstein via a power of attorney play so that Epstein had access to all this money. And that's how Epstein's operation really started, it seems, back in 1991. But regardless, they tried to redact his name. So this is where Todd Blanche comes in. Because I mentioned this on my last episode yesterday, Todd Blanche, a lifelong Democrat, New York Democrat, lifelong Democrat who only became a Republican a year and a half ago, has now found himself working in this Trump administration in the Trump Department of Justice as the Assistant Attorney General, the number 2 position in the DOJ. The guy that Pam Bondi oftentimes decides to take a back seat to. And it's like this weird dynamic. She takes a back seat to him while hogging the spotlight as the blonde bimbo Barbie bitch. And then Todd Blanche is the one making a lot of these decisions, but not in the spotlight so much. And everything about him is suspicious. Todd Blanche is, in my opinion, very likely a mole in the DOJ. The guy became a conservative a year and a half ago. And Trump only allowed him in because Todd Blanche also represented Trump during the Biden regime's relentless lawfare prosecutions against him in the Biden presidency. So Todd Blanche has been arguing with Thomas Massie back and forth on X. I covered this briefly last night. He's been arguing about this whole Les Wexner name redaction. He said, according to Todd Blanche, he passed it off as he said, "Oh, well, Wexner's name already appears in the Epstein files hundreds of times. And, this is just one of the times where we accidentally redacted it." The problem is a lot of names appear in the Epstein files multiple times. It doesn't implicate them criminally necessarily. Epstein was a networker. He made it his business to get to know wealthy, powerful people. He made it his business to get to know as many of them as possible so that he could set them up in an incriminating, situation on the island and then blackmail them and abuse them for their power and their wealth. So it's no secret, of course, that Les Wexner's name's in the files a couple hundred times. Todd Blanche is trying to excuse that and say, "Oh, well, Les Wexner's name's already in there." The fact of the matter, though, is Les Wexner's name is in there a couple hundred times, yes, but on this child sex trafficking co-conspirators list, where you really want to see the names, that's where Les Wexner's name was originally redacted by this DOJ. Of course, Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna came together. They wrote a stern letter, an actual stern, strongly worded letter, unlike the stupid bullshit ones Pam Bondi does that solve nothing. These two wrote the strongly worded letter, reminding Pam Bondi of her duties as the Attorney General in following the congressional law of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. They were not to be redacting the names of co-conspirators. They tried with Les Wexner. It got, within 40 minutes, according to Pam Bondi, this was her defense, they undid it. And they unredacted his name. And that was her defense. Because that was the important document that Les Wexner was on. And surprise, surprise, his name was redacted in it. So Massie winds up going on to show a third document full of perpetrators' names. This is by far some of the most absurd shit you'll ever see, by the way. This presentation of Massie's on the third one. Sup, bro, says Corey Mary. Hello, Corey Mary, $33.99. Welcome to the stream. In a very incriminating way, yeah, most are ick, if not the worst people ever, says local media. Well, it's hard to say. It is tough to say. For instance, well, I guess maybe you would say Piers Morgan is ick. But Piers Morgan's in the Epstein Files, for instance, because he took a photo with Ghislaine Maxwell once at a New York event. It was like at a public event. And it's the only time Piers Morgan was involved with any of it. He took a photo with Ghislaine, never met Jeffrey. He's in the files. So you have to be careful with that, because it's like not... Piers Morgan gives me the ick, don't get me wrong. Piers Morgan's not a predator. Okay, I think we can all agree on that. So that's what I mean by that, where it's like there are a lot of names in there, and it doesn't implicate guilt, and you have to be careful. That's why I'm careful about how I report on this stuff. Anyways, Massey shows this third document, and it's a name. It's literally a name of all the perpetrators. The entire document's redacted. Worse yet, Massey says that he went to the portal at the FBI to look at what's behind the redaction on this email, and he says when he went to the portal to look at what's behind the redaction, there's another redaction. So not even Thomas Massey can see what's redacted. He can't see any of these names. That's absurd. It is ridiculous to find any of this out. And MAGA is still going to deflect on today's shit show. I'm not. I'm not MAGA. I'm definitely not MAGA. I voted for Trump, though. I'm a super conservative. I stated that at the beginning of this episode. I am not here to deflect at all. This cannot stand anymore. And I'm getting to the point here where I'm going to talk about Pam Bondi and what needs to happen. But so that's what Massey brought to everybody's light here. It's ridiculous. It's sloppy. It's complicit. It's all the worst case scenarios. Massey then goes on to ask, after showing all three of these documents, the largely redacted entire page that's a black rectangle of perpetrators' names redacted. The page where Les Wexner's name they tried to redact originally, but then had to unredact. The first email, where it was the victims' lawyers sending the email titled Victims' Names to be Redacted, that they sent out only redacting the attorney's name and leaving all the victims' names unredacted. After showing all three of those, Massey then goes on to ask Pam Bondi a couple of questions. The lead one that he asks is, who is responsible for these mistakes? Is there any accountability? Is there any way to track down who has made these mistakes so that accountability can be a concept here? Pam Bondi says, well, we fixed the mistakes in 40 minutes. Massey quickly responds, yeah, 40 minutes after I caught you red-handed and forced you to fix them. Pam Bondi, of course, is outraged over this, and they bicker back and forth, but Pam Bondi, just like the rest of the day, doesn't give any real answers to anything. She then goes on to say Thomas Massey is a man with Trump derangement syndrome, and she should be thanking Trump, who's the greatest president of the United States. She then goes on to say she says he has TDS and he's a failed politician. Massey then plays a clip of Kash Patel, reminding everyone that Kash Patel possibly perjured himself, lying to Congress, I believe it would be. Or was it the Senate? I actually think it was a Senate hearing. But Massey plays the clip of Patel saying, there is no credible info. He then directly asks Pam Bondi for a firm statement on whether or not that is her position as well. Pam Bondi then says any victims can come forward. She would love to talk to them. And she cites a hotline that they can call in. The ironic thing is, at the beginning of this hearing, Pramila Jayapal had Epstein victims there in attendance, stand up, all of them raising their hand when she asked if they were to raise their hand if the DOJ had not interviewed them. All of them raised their hands, confirming that this DOJ has not talked to any of these victims at all. So apparently Pam Bondi's willing to talk to the victims. She'd love to, just not any of the ones that were in attendance that day, because they've all been ignored for the past year. Actually, even longer, because the Biden administration didn't want anything to do with them either. And so that's the sickening part here. And then she goes on after that to once again deflect about Merrick Garland. And she says, Thomas Massey, how come you didn't ask Attorney General Merrick Garland under the Biden administration any of these questions? It's all so sickening. It is all so sickening. It points again to the fact that this is not a woman's position. We need to get this Trump administration brag about the amount of women in this administration. It needs to stop. Trump needs to clean house. And the sad reality is Pam Bondi needs to resign, but even if she does at this point, it won't fix anything. Give me one sec. It won't fix anything because Pam Bondi may be the current bottleneck, but her assistant attorney general is Todd Blanche. and he would willingly step up to replace her as the next bottleneck. It's kind of weird, this dynamic that we have right now. I've noticed this. We have at the congressional level, we have Ro Khanna, a Democrat, and Thomas Massie, a Republican. Perhaps the last two good politicians out there that care about, when it comes to the Epstein Files at least. They're the warriors right now pushing for complete transparency and accountability. Then in this corrupt Department of Justice, you have Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, a conservative, and Todd Blanche, the Assistant Attorney General, a Republican for a year and a half. He's a Democrat. He's been a lifelong Democrat. So it's like you have this weird dynamic right now. It's like these tag teams going at it. And that's the problem. That's why if Pam Bondi resigns, it won't solve anything. Todd Blanche has been worse in some cases at defending the names of the co-conspirators in the Epstein Files, like he tried to do with Les Wexner when he was interacting with Thomas Massie on X. All of those tweets are available for everybody to read. And so, yes, Pam Bondi on principle should resign, but the fact of the matter is, the reality here is, her resignation wouldn't solve anything. What needs to happen is Trump needs to clean house. But the problem is Trump is just as likely to want all of this to remain as covered up as possible, the same way that Pam Bondi is. And that's because, again, they're protecting these global elite scumbags out here. They're too concerned with the political institutions and system being burnt down, which they know is what would happen if accountability actually came about for all of these scumbags in the Epstein Files. And so we're not going to get these people are not, if they're fired, it will only be a PR move by Trump. It won't be because they deserve to be. Because truthfully, Pam Bondi deserved to be fired 8 months ago, and she hasn't been fired yet. No deep state arrests. We're now 1 year in. No to Pam Bondi being appointed. No deep state arrests. No investigations into these perpetrators. Nothing. And that's the thing. It's all broken. All of this is broken. I hate to black pill like this, but we're not getting the justice that we want because they don't represent us and they don't care. Worse yet, I wanted to say this. I've been watching a couple of MAGA YouTube channels, guys that I used to watch last year around February, March when Trump was killing it, when I was a super Trump fan still, because Trump was doing great stuff then. And I've been watching these channels, and the narrative now is, according to some of these channels I've looked at, well, the Epstein Files are now released. And basically they're saying, I agree with what Trump said a little while back. It's time for us to move on. No, the fuck it isn't. If we move on, we allow them to get away with what they're doing. We allow the perpetrators and co-conspirators to get away with the disgusting, depraved acts that they got away with for decades with these women. And we allow this DOJ to get away with covering all this up, or at least attempting to. They want us to move on. Never move on. We demand justice. It's our right to have justice. But that's the narrative now that's emerging for these MAGA cheerleader channels, because they know this is terrible. They know this is the worst possible thing that could have happened, and it didn't even have to play out this way. Trump could have been a hero by now if he just went with what he promised on his campaign trail to release the fucking files and then use the DA effectively to actually prosecute, arrest, and imprison the scumbags that are in it. This was a golden opportunity for this Trump administration to really prove which side is the right side of the aisle, the best side, the moral side. And he failed miserably. And there's no way around it. I don't care how much you love MAGA. I don't care. Oh, I voted for him too. I don't care. You voted for him. If you love MAGA, if you refuse to burn your MAGA hat, whatever. Trump failed miserably with this Epstein Files disaster. And the fact of the matter is, the only people out there that want to pretend that this isn't important are the MAGA cheerleader boomer toe-the-line party people. I'd rather vote for the lesser of two evil types. We're done with that. The young generations are done with that. We want justice. We want a system that works for us, and we demand it. And it's our right as Americans to demand that, because that's how it was all originally intended to be. If this shit was being revealed 200 years ago, it would be mob justice being carried out right now. These fucking people are lucky that America is 250 years in, that society and civilization has gotten so soft. Because 200, 240, 250 years ago, they'd all be hanging by now. All of them, including the ones that tried to cover it up. That's just facts. They're very lucky now. This country's so huge, this nation's so huge. People are not coming together to bring about the justice that they demand. It just doesn't work that way anymore. And part of that's a good thing, right? Like, we're more civilized now. But, that's what I think of immediately in times like this. I think about that. I'm just like, this would not fly. This would have not flied 200 years ago. The people would have been outraged. They would have done something about it. If their government failed to represent them, back then, politicians were fearful. They were afraid to not represent their constituents. They knew what the consequences were. Those consequences don't exist anymore for them. And that's what's so gross about all this. And really, this galvanizes the youth. That's what's happening here. It's going to create radicals. It's going to change the way our elections are carried out, because people are going to campaign now on justice, law and order. It's opening a bunch of different dangerous situations to us in the future, to be honest with you, all because this administration doesn't want to hold these people accountable and didn't want to do the right thing. That's the messaging here. I'll take a look at some chats, drink some water. All of a sudden, Dems care about cops. Hey, listen, Democrats are a phony party. Everyone knows it. The president needs to go back to taking the bud. You sound like that athlete at the Winter Olympics. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't watch sports. I'm not a big sports guy. Like, I was big into playing sports, but I'm not a big sports person. And now it's innocent until proven guilty. Bondi is smarter than anyone on here. You're so stupid. Here's the thing: if you prosecute a person and they get a not guilty verdict, you can't go after them again for the same claims with better information later. This is that whole narrative where it's good cases take time. The fact of the matter is, the Biden administration, within their first year, that DOJ successfully landed cases against Trump's former administration people and made several arrests, and some of them went to prison. And they stayed in prison until Trump pardoned them. So no, I don't want to hear that. We're a year in now. We've seen nothing. We haven't even seen an inkling of a case start. The best we got was James Comey walking into a courthouse, sneaking in through a side door, pleading not guilty, and then never being heard from again. We got Don Lemon arrested, a fucking reporter. And we've gotten abysmal failures like Letitia James, who Pam Bondi failed to convince a grand jury to indict 2 times inside of 1 week. Disgrace. There is no 3D chess being played here. Stop tricking yourselves into a bunch of that bullshit. It's not happening. It's all by design that it's not happening. By the way, please be sure to like the stream, subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this if you haven't already. Make sure your post notifications are turned on so you're always aware of when I go live. A lot of people saying shut up. They don't, you know what? If you don't want to hear it, you can go elsewhere. You poor, sensitive little MAGA cheerleading bitch. But this is why it's important to not be wrapped up into the cult-like effects of MAGA. MAGA is not fully a cult. It's a coalition. But it has cult-like people in it. And the fact of the matter is, you can't worship somebody like that. I voted for Trump. I'm still happier with Trump than Kamala. I can guarantee you that. Kamala would have been a train wreck. But the fact of the matter is, when I see shit like this going down, I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm not going to not speak out about it. I am not going to toe this wicked party line if this party won't represent me. And the fact of the matter is, they don't represent me. Everything they've been doing since, I would say, about August or July even of last year has deliberately been not what I voted for. Trump started off strong. He fulfilled a lot of the promises I wanted him to. From January to April of last year, I was thrilled. Not anymore, and I'm not going to stay quiet about it. It's important to hold the elected officials, the people you voted for, accountable. That's actually crucial. Believe it or not, it's this old boomer thing where it's like, oh, don't criticize them, though. No, I'm going to criticize them. That's my right and, quite honestly, my job. This is not a train wreck. You are so delusional. Everything about Pam Bondi today, I'm telling you, I listened to 2.5 hours straight of her hearing out of 4 hours total. It was a train wreck. It was the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen out of an attorney general in my lifetime. It was pathetic. I don't have a moderator, David Thompson. I'm a free speech absolutist for the most part. If I catch someone spamming, I'll ban them. But I'll deport them. I deport them. I revoke their citizenship if they spam. But I don't really care. Like none of the chats really bother me, to be honest with you. I don't know any of these people, so they're like, "You're an idiot." It's like, okay, I don't even know who you are. Literally, no one will remember your name, so it doesn't bother me. This is a national emergency. The fact of the matter too is it's really an international emergency, and it's even more disgraceful to watch some of these other countries. Like I constantly am watching and following the UK now. They're handling Peter Mandelson over there and Keir Starmer way better than we are. Like Howard Lutnick was just kind of like almost implicated in the Epstein Files the other day. He said that he cut off ties with Epstein in 2005 and then decided to have lunch on his island with his family in 2012. And 2012 was 4 years after Epstein was found guilty of child sexual predatory behavior in Florida. That's like resign-worthy accusations there. And Howard Lutnick admitted to it. He said, yeah, I had lunch there. I can't remember why, but I do remember the fact that I only stayed on that island for an hour. Give me a fucking break. Over in the UK, you have Peter Mandelson, who's about wrapped up in the same way. He's done. They've stripped him of almost everything, and it's so bad that they're now coming after Prime Minister Keir Starmer there because Keir Starmer had foreknowledge of Peter Mandelson's involvement with Epstein. And it's like, I criticize the UK so much. They're a fucking bozo country. NATO, the European Union, I look at them as like inferior Western nations overall. But in this case, why is it that the UK is handling this better than we are here? It's all a disgrace. Can't continue. Who's 6721? Who's being told to shut up? You are. I am paid for this on YouTube. I am. And thanks to super chatters like 2009 Lifeguard and others, I get super chats from time to time too. But yeah, I'm paid. I'm paid for watch time and views, etc. So yeah, I'm paid. But this is not propaganda. The propagandists are the channels that are saying, oh, well, the Epstein Files are out now. It's all time to move on. We got to move on from this. I've seen several MAGA YouTube channels say that. That's propaganda. That's bullshit. We need investigations, prosecutions, and we need these corrupt elite scumbags to be brought to justice. That means prison or death. Capital punishment. Because some of these crimes, I think we can all agree, if it's true, it deserves capital punishment. I think you are very intelligent, said Sid Life 365. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Definitely be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. Appreciate you. Speaking of 2009 Lifeguard, he says, how do we stop this from swinging back? It's I don't know, man. Honestly, the fact of the matter is it's already swung. The pendulum's already moved. It's already swung and it's going to come back. There's really not much you can do about it. I think the only way to really go from here is the Republicans there needs to be candidates that rise up in the conservative party that focus on cost of living for the everyday American, not just the stock market. Cost of living, economic populism, and justice and law and order. The things that we are starved for the most right now. I'm witnessing prices go up in the grocery store. I'm witnessing shrinkflation happen again. Some of the products that I buy are coming in smaller ounce sizes again, while the prices remain the same. Over time, those prices are going to go up again. On top of that, there's no law and order. There's no justice. When you have a miserable economy for the everyday American to live in, they feel like they're being priced out of their own market. They can't afford to live comfortably anymore. And they turn on their TV and they see no justice for any high-level, high-ranking political power kind of a person. That's the makings of a revolution. And I say that all the time because it's true. And I don't want, we don't want a revolution in this country. They get violent. They set the country back, at least temporarily. And we're in a position geopolitically right now where we actually can't afford that to happen, in all honesty. But nevertheless, that's what I see. Those are the ingredients in the recipe of a revolution. Trump is playing with fire with this. And that's why I'm so outspoken on how he handled this. he tried to call the Epstein Files a hoax because of his name being involved in it. And anybody with a brain and time to read the files understands what Trump is saying there. But the imagery, the optics of him saying it's all a hoax, that's terrible. Then you have this idiot bitch Pam Bondi in office who's handling it poorly. She made a fool of herself today. This is by far the worst. What she did last year may have been embarrassing with the Phase 1 binders, her constant Fox News appearances. The files disappeared on my desk. I don't know where they are. They were never there, actually. That was all embarrassing. What happened today was it should be the final nail in the coffin for her career as the U.S. Attorney General. It was the most embarrassing display I've ever seen out of an Attorney General. I had secondhand embarrassment watching her discuss the Dow Jones when she was there to discuss law and order cases, criminal cases, prosecutions. She tried to discuss the stock market. I literally had secondhand embarrassment. I don't even know what to say about it. And so where do we go from there? I don't know, man. Where do we go from here? This is disgraceful. You live in rural Tennessee, 2009 lifeguard. Nice. The cost of living is coming down. Interest rates for houses are coming down. Trump literally said he wants the price of he wants the housing market to go up. He wants the prices to remain high for boomers. It's literally what he wants it for. He wants the boomers to feel rich. On top of that, the cost of living, they may say, is going down, but I've actually tracked the percentage of it, and in some cases, it's gone up 1.4% overall, year over year, or 0.9% in some cases as well. Just use your eyes. You can actually believe you're lying. They want you to think your eyes are lying to you. They're not. I've seen the prices just go up literally a month ago in my local grocery stores. So, no, they're not going down. Not for grocery store consumer prices, at least. Gas went down a lot at first, but it's remained the same. The only thing that really declined a lot was eggs, and the eggs were only ever high because of Biden. And Biden it was a spiteful move. I guarantee you Biden was laughing his ass off when he signed the order 4 days before Trump got sworn in to cull 110 million chickens over the bird flu, a solution that never was going to work. It was all deliberate. It was to make the egg prices high to give Trump a rocky start. It was fucking funny, in all honesty, but it was also ridiculous to see $7 eggs. Those shot down, of course, but that's because more chickens were produced. Now they're producing eggs. That was an easy one to fix. Me too, and I tell 2009 lifeguard, and I tell you something, traffic tickets, I've never seen traffic control like the past 2 years. They're bleeding the public like that too. Law and order, right? Yeah, exactly. Speeding is legal for a fee. The problem is the fee is very expensive for the everyday American, and they love that. They love imposing all that shit on us. I've been to court throughout my life more than James Comey has, more than Bill Clinton has, and that's the tragedy here. Where's Les Wexner in court? Where's Leon Black in court? Where's Ehud Barak? Prince Andrew? Where are any of these deep staters? James Brennan? Where's Comey, Clapper, Brennan? Where are these guys? Where are they in court? I've been in court way more than any of them have been as a defendant. That's a problem. Because I've broken no laws, I've just been in court for like what 2009 lifeguard's saying. Fucking, not even speeding. It's always even dumber shit. It's not even for speeding, but it's all just, I had to go to court once over having a fire in my backyard. A fire. Yeah. That's what they're focused on. How dare you have a fire that's not covered by a metal grate? Oh, my bad. I just figured I'd roast some hot dogs, but, silly me having a fire in my backyard. Wow. Goodness gracious. So stupid. Well, you tried getting Comey and failed. Yeah, exactly. Well, I covered that already. She did fail utterly. Abysmal. Atrocious performance. Whatever happened to Matt Gaetz? He does a show now. It's honestly a little pathetic. I understand he's just trying to do his best, but Matt Gaetz was tricked out of his position. He gave up his seat to become Attorney General, and then because Republicans eat their own so fast when Democrats levy allegations against him, that's what they did. They levied allegations against him for some sort of possible situation that happened in Florida with a 17-year-old girl, and the Republicans immediately said, we can't appoint this guy. It's a terrible look. We need Pam Bondi instead. And that's how that played out. So Gaetz gave up his seat, didn't get Attorney General. Now he has a show that he does. I think you're having a bad day. No, I'm not. I'm not. My day's been going okay. Was that when we banned burning the American flag? Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. I wish we would still ban that. Can't print 13 trillion out of thin air and expect costs to stay the same. Exactly. Well, and the Fed is printing more money too. So it's not, they tried to stop the printing last fall, but then in December they quietly resumed printing. So, this economy is fucked. It's a bubble and it's going to pop no matter what they do. Because if they stop printing, it's going to pop. If they start printing, it's going to pop. It'll be interesting to see what the new Fed chair does, but I don't know. I don't even know where they go from here. And Biden did fuck our economy, by the way. I say this at the beginning of the stream. I am not a liberal. I am a super conservative. I'm just very disappointed with my party, with this administration as a whole. But I'm not at a point where I want to blame Democrats for everything still, or rather talk about it. You can absolutely blame Democrats for a lot of this shit. They never mentioned Epstein. Yes. 9.1 inflation under Biden on his second year in, or really in between his second and third year. Disgraceful. Everybody should remember that. Every 3 weeks I went to the grocery store, products were in smaller packages for more money. That was Biden. So yeah, they're not exonerated from this, but I'm past the point. This is year 2 now, okay? Now we look at this administration and we say, what are you doing for us? That's where we need to be at. We do actually get to hold this administration responsible now, too, just so everybody understands that. It's not like you just get to, we're not going to, because Biden, that administration only ever blamed Trump for everything. They never took accountability. We can't allow that, okay? Biden needed to take responsibility for what he did. Now we're at a point now, this administration, this is the year. This will be the tell-all year. However this year ends will really tell you what the last 2 years of the Trump administration is going to look like, in my opinion. So it's on us to hold them responsible. Both sides fucked us. They have too. That is true too. Because the Republicans sold all of our manufacturing overseas all those years ago. They were big on that one to lower the cost of our goods. So Republicans fucked us up too, definitely. But then you have Bill Clinton. He fucked up the housing market. So it's like they all did. Absolutely. That's the difference. Conservatives do look inward. Democrats look outward on all. Democrats are largely a group of collective narcissists. That's what you'll find. They exhibit narcissistic behavior. It's all about optics to Democrats. It's all about how it looks to say or do something. It's never about what it means to do it. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. That is the difference. Hi from Northern Canada, says Nikki Buckler, 5906. Hello. Coney Island says hi as well. Coney Island, that's pretty cool. You ever see Spider-Man swinging through there? The bison returns. The BRICS nations are gathering. Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens with BRICS. I think a large part of BRICS is a bunch of, it's all paper tiger militaries. I mean, we'll see. Russia can't even take Ukraine, we'll see. All right, that's going to wrap it up, though, guys. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thanks to the Super Chats. I appreciate you. 2009 Lifeguard MVP of the day. Thanks for the Super Chat, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for everybody who tuned in, subscribed, and liked. It's still not too late, by the way. Subscribe right now to American Advocate for more content like this. Still leave a like on this stream. It'll help. And if I missed one of your chats and you're really upset about it and you wanted me to read it and you feel ignored, you can leave it as a comment, as this will post as a video after the fact. If your comment's any good, I'll reply to it, but I don't cast my pearls to swine. So if you leave a stupid ass comment, I'm not going to respond to it. But thanks to everybody who tuned in. Glory to America. God bless the USA. We got to fix this country, guys. We got to fix this country. That's what I'm going to leave you off with for tonight. We can fix it. Don't give up hope. Remain optimistic. If you're a good person, consider running in your local politics, because we need more good people to step up. That really is the bottom line here. That's the messaging here, in all honesty. We should never lose sight of that, because the problem is we've got a bunch of shitty fuckers all representing us right now. That's why the system's broken. So it's not too late. America can be saved. It deserves to be saved, because we deserve to have an amazing country to live in. We can restore America to its glory, but we all are going to have to take an active part to do so. God bless all of you. Thanks so much. Have a great